All right, welcome everyone. Thank you so much for joining us for What's Up Wednesday. This is Arizona Hands and Voices and the Guide by Your Side team. And my name is Heidi Klumhouse. I am the Executive Director, and I'm also the Program Coordinator for the Guide by Your Side team. I am excited tonight to have a wonderful opportunity to listen to our panelists that we've been able to invite and secure for tonight as they share their experience, their insights, and anything else that they want to share with us on their journey growing up deaf and hard of hearing or deafblind. We really appreciate you all taking the time to be here. A couple of things before we get started. I just want to go over some ground rules. So the first thing, obviously, is because of the community that we are serving, we want to be respectful and make sure that we are not talking over each other and that we give everyone the opportunity to be heard and to be recognized as the speakers. So with that, we ask that if you have any questions or any comments or feedback and you wish to take the floor, you can use the raise hand feature down in the bottom of your Zoom, or you can wave your hand, try to get our attention, wait till your name is called. And then once you do come on the screen, we ask that you identify yourself. This allows for the captions to capture who is speaking, and also for the ASL interpreter to identify the speaker as well. So that way, for those of us that are deaf and hard of hearing, we can identify who is speaking. We do have a series of questions that have already been pre-worked, and so Delight, which is one of our deaf and hard of hearing guys, and Ashley Kempton, one of our other deaf and hard of hearing guys, they will be taking the lead on this. So at this time, I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to them. Delight, the floor is yours, and I'll let you do the introductions of all of our panelists. Again, welcome and thank you.
Hello, everyone. I am Delight. I am a deaf and hard of hearing guide. I do know some of the faces, some of the panelists here with us tonight, but I want to take an opportunity to introduce everyone who is here. So please, when we call on you, let us know your age, your name, your name, your age, and the approximate range. You don't have to be too specific about that. And then also let us know what you're currently doing for employment. I'm going to go ahead and start with Caitlin.
Hi everyone, I'm Caitlin and I am 21 years old. I am actually a senior at the University of Arizona majoring in deaf studies, and I plan one day to get into, into getting to the counseling program and hopefully be a counselor for the deaf one day.
Wonderful.
Oh, also, sorry, this is my name tag, Caitlin, like the K, because I always smile, so yeah.
Caitlin, perfect. Okay, next we'll go to Latrina. Hi, everyone. My name is Latrina. I am 44, almost 45. Currently, I am a certified teacher working at ASDB. I've taught both at public school for the TUSD school district called Miles, ELC. I was there for about 12 years. And then I now am teaching at ASDB. This is my 7th year, so a total of 19 years in total teaching. I've taught deaf, hard of hearing, students with that are deaf with additional disabilities. I have also taught CODAs, so children of deaf adults, and hearing students as well. It's nice to meet everyone here tonight. Thank you so much for coming. I'll turn it over to Andrew now.
Hi, everyone. This is Andrew Cohen. This is my name sign. I am deaf-blind. I have Usher's syndrome, which means I am able to see some, but I only have tunnel vision. I don't have any peripheral vision. How old am I? Huh. To give you a range, I'd say I'm between 0 and 100 years old, somewhere in there. And as far as my employment, I work with computers, something like that. No, I am actually a software engineer. And I work for Vanguard, the financial company. I've been there for 4 or 5 years now, and it's nice to meet you all.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. I have Sorry, I have some feedback coming my way. I'm trying to ignore the voices that I'm hearing, so sorry about that. I did want to send out the survey to everyone, and we're just going to go through the questions in order as they were sent to you. So, question for all three of you. First off, what do you enjoy doing for fun? Again, this is not work related. So outside of work, what do you enjoy doing for fun? And feel free to answer as you feel the urge. Latrina, go right ahead. I absolutely love traveling. I've been to 3 different countries, including Kenya in Africa. I've been to China, 5 different towns there in China. And I've also been to Mexico, Nogales, Mexico, which isn't too far from Tucson, but I absolutely love traveling. I've been to 17 of our states. The goal is to hit all 50, so I'm working towards that. I absolutely love going to the movies with my daughter. She's 15 now, and so we'll go to the movies as often as we can. And we'll look for movies that either have open captions right up on the screen, or the rear view device. It's a separate device that you read the captions on, separate from the screen. But either way, we'll go to the movies. We really enjoy that time together. And most importantly, I collect everything purple. As you can see, my shirt is purple. My background is purple. So that is what I do. Just so you understand my collection, I have a purple air fryer. I have a purple broom, a purple vacuum. So if I don't have it, you know what to get me for the holidays, okay? Thanks again for having me. Oh,
Is the vest I'm wearing?
I also enjoy reading and doing other things.
Latrina, is this purple?
I see your purple tie, Andrew. Yeah, you know, I don't have a tie. Why don't you send that over? All right, who would like to go next? Caitlin, go for it.
So some things I like to do for fun. I'm choosing just a few, but it's still a long one. But first, I really love to do art. I am a huge fan of painting and everything. I also enjoy reading, ice skating, swing dancing, hiking, and hanging with my friends. I also enjoy going to barn dances, Bible study groups, going to the top of the mountain to watch sunset with my friends, and exploring and just going on adventures. I love adventures. Yeah.
Wonderful, thank you. Andrew, this is the right name sign, yes? Go right ahead.
Andrew here. As far as what I like to do for fun, I like to do community work. I like doing charity work, and I'm very involved in the DeafBlind community. There's a retreat here called the DeafBlind Retreat of Arizona, and I helped to establish the organization, and I've helped over the past few years get things going with them. It's been a lot of fun. That's generally how I spend my free time, is out in the community, watching community organizations grow. Thanks.
Wonderful, thank you very much, Andrew. All right. Oh, I forgot to identify myself before speaking. This is Delight once again. We'll move on to question, the next question. What did your parents do for you that was helpful or not so helpful in learning to live with your, with being deaf, hard of hearing, or deafblind? You can answer one or both of the questions. Don't feel that you have to answer them both. Who would like to start?
I can. That's a really good question. And this is Andrew here. My parents told me that I was deaf and that I was deafblind and that I live in a world that's designed for people who are hearing and sighted. And they stressed to me that it was on me to find the answers that I needed. With that lesson that they taught me, let's say I was wondering one day why the sky was blue, and I went to my parents with that question. They wouldn't give me an answer. Instead, they would give me a book to reference to find the answer, to really understand the reason. And so that's something that they instilled in me, is that ability to figure out how things work and why things work. That really helped me with my success and my independence. I would say it works for me. I don't know about others, but that helped me be better prepared.
Wonderful. Thank you. Caitlin or Latrina? Caitlin, go right ahead.
Can you remind me again what the question is? I missed it. I'm sorry.
Sure. I think I actually skipped one on the list. The question was, though, growing up, what did your parents do that was helpful or benefited you? And this is for your individual, being deaf or being hard of hearing. How did your parents help?
Well, first of all, the thing that is the least helpful would be my parents throwing dirty metal spoons at my head, which happened more than once, actually. Yeah, so instead of coming up to me to get my attention, they would throw stuff at me, and I hate that a lot. And so now they still do it once in a while, but I am passive aggressive, even when anyone does that. And they're like, geez, Caitlin, take a chill pill. And I'm like, you threw something at me to get my attention. That is not acceptable. But yeah, but that, right. Don't do that to your kids, okay, guys? That's just really not fun. But also, I grew up in Prescott, Arizona. So it's a small town and we don't really have much of a deaf community down there. So, and I'm the only one deaf in my family. And I'm also the firstborn. So when my parents found out, it took them quite a while to figure out what to do, because they've had no idea what to do with me when they found out. So, but what was helpful is that I grew up in a town that was just all hearing people. They were still able to make sure that I get the accommodation that I needed as a deaf person. For example, I went to mainstream schools, but I had sign language interpreters, and I even had a teacher for the deaf and hard of hearing, Miss Lisa Novak. And I worked with her for 13 years, from kindergarten to 12th grade. And she's actually, but even though I was pretty much 95% of the time in the hearing world, I still had access to the deaf world. So it's really grateful that my parents, they didn't really go on that path, freaking out, saying, oh my gosh, we need to make her as hearing as possible. They still embraced my deafness, and they made sure that I had access to the deaf world. And another thing that they did is make sure that I would go to deaf camps and deaf events. And I even went to a deaf camp called Camp Cartier. And that is actually where I met Ashley about Switch. So yeah.
Awesome. Thank you. Latrina? Hello. Yes. This is a really great question, and I'm so happy there are parents here tonight. So my parents set the bar extremely high. I'm the oldest of 4 children. I have a younger brother who's 2 years younger than me and who's hearing. Then there is a sister younger than me who is deaf. My parents didn't recognize she was deaf originally. And then later on, I have a baby sister who is hearing as well. So we alternate through our sibling set. But again, like I said, my parents set the bar very high with me being the oldest. They made sure that everything was set up for me to access my world. And so they, that time they learned ASL, but it wasn't called ASL at the time. They called it PSE, Pigeon Signed English. So it's sign language, but more in an English word order. But my parents went and learned that. They brought me to speech therapy. They gave me hearing aids. They made sure that my hearing aid experience was an enjoyable one. I really did enjoy that. I liked listening to music. I liked listening to my parents' voices. And they talked with me later about it, that it wouldn't have been something if it wasn't if it wasn't enjoyable for me. But I would hang out with my family. We would watch TV shows together. Eventually, a captioning box was available. To begin with, the technology wasn't even available. But as soon as my parents knew that they could get that decoder, they ran right down to JCPenney. I don't know if any of you are old enough to remember JCPenney or even the decoder, but you got this little box, came with its manual, that you had to set up your closed captions for your TV. My parents went out and got me that piece of equipment. They also got me a TTY so that I could make phone calls to my friends and family. Originally, a lot of services or a lot of equipment that was given to me free. But then they recognized my parents' income was too high. And so those devices weren't always given to me anymore. But my parents worked hard, they made it happen. So they earned too much to qualify, but it wasn't a lavish lifestyle. So they would save and they would get me the equipment. Again, we had to buy all these separate devices to have access. Nowadays, it's all built in. You just need your remote. The one I have right here, you just turn on captioning. So it's interesting to think back to that time when we had to really build our living room set around it. Again, my family went and learned ASL. They then taught basic ASL to my extended family. And at that time, again, we didn't have access to online classes, Zoom classes, anything like that. And the college classes that were available were reserved for people on an interpreter track, really. So there weren't as many for fun or leisure classes of ASL to take. It was considered adult education, maybe for some teachers, but again, this was the 70s. So this whole idea, the whole field, the whole profession, everything was really, really new. So my parents would drive quite a long distance to learn what they could learn. And that's what was available to them. They would go once a week. Of course, that isn't enough, but they would, they tried and they did and they took advantage again of what was available to them. So they're really good finger spellers. And that was my original access, my original entry into my world. And they were ready to go when they had my sister a couple years later. Wonderful. Thank you again so much. This is a delight. If any questions come to mind, know that we have time set aside at the end for questions. If you sent them in the chat, we're not ignoring you. We're just waiting until the end. Okay, so I skipped a question earlier. We're going to backtrack a little bit. So we're going to jump back up to number 2. What is your favorite childhood memory? Caitlin, I know you're young. Maybe you don't have too many yet, but. Go right ahead, Caitlin.
Well, I have a lot of great memories. I'm not that young for your information. But my favorite would be last Christmas, actually, if I were to choose one. What happened is that my most of my family, like my immediate family, learned sign language for me. But but not everyone learned. It's just, my parents, my grandparents, and that was it. But then Christmas morning, I went to my grandparents, relatives for them, and then I saw one family, which is one of my aunts and uncles and two of the kids. They started signing to each other and they started signing to me. And I'm like, you guys don't know sign language. And then they surprised me. They said, we've been taking a sign language class at the community college for a year. And I was just like, that is like so sweet. And I appreciate it when people say, oh, you inspired me to learn sign language and all that stuff. So that was just a really special memory for me. And the best Christmas gift ever. So.
That's awesome. How wonderful. Thank you for sharing. Latrina, Andrew. This is Latrina. I grew up with a really large family. I had a big extended family, of course, 4 brothers and sisters, lots of cousins. So looking back at my favorite memory, I think one of the best things I love to do is going to my grandparents' house. I would go to my mother's mom and dad and my father's mom and dad, each for about a week. And it was so fun because you got to go with cousins, you got to get into lots of trouble, sneak away, do fun things that you didn't get to normally do. And of course, you had to be really quiet, right? And the big cousins would tell us where to go and how to get through all the tunnels and all the passages and all of that kind of thing. And so it's just so fun. And really, it made for a tight-knit family. We still, to this day, we support each other. We take trips out of country, out of town together. I was born and raised in Texas, you should know. And so the 4th of July is just absolutely crazy down there. So I make sure to make the trip every year to Dallas to see my family. It's about a 3-hour drive, but the fireworks are like none other. And so my whole family knows. We bring flashlights, we bring our phones, they hold it up for me. I do my best to catch their finger spelling, read their lips if I need to, but they're always making me feel included and a part of the larger family. And so like Caitlin said, you know, my family took sign language classes, they're learning, and more members are doing that still to this day. More of my family members are in the education field and they're learning sign as part of that. And so they're able to share in the advocacy of this work. It's really nice. One of my cousins went to audiology, is an ASL or is a audiology licensed practitioner. And they're always advocating for their clients to learn sign language as well as have, you know, whatever sort of amplification that they are. And so it's nice that there's been a shift, and my family is part of that too, to advocate for having both worlds accessible to people, not having to, you know, separate one from the other. You know, today we're living in the future. It's 2022. There are no excuses for families that don't sign or think that signing is bad. So I love to see families that sign and include their deaf children in the larger family events. And, you know, it doesn't matter where you are in your life, what your experiences have been, or what age you are, you can always learn sign language. Never too late for that. This is Delight. Thank you so much, Latrina. Andrew, here you are. Go right ahead.
Andrew here. Thinking back, I do have one memory. Probably my favorite childhood memory was from wrestling camp. I went to wrestling camp at Gallaudet University. Back in the day, they hosted a camp. They no longer do. But it was my first time being in a deaf environment, a fully signing deaf environment, because I grew up in a small town. I'm from Pennsylvania originally, and I was the only deaf person in my small town. I thought I was the only deaf person that existed. And it wasn't until I found out later that Gallaudet University had this wrestling camp, and I attended, had a lot of fun there. And at the camp, that's when I realized that I'm not alone. That's when I realized that there are other people out there who are like me. And of course, these days, it's much easier to find your community online and to connect with people. But back then, we didn't have that. And so that was really a unique experience for me, an impactful experience that helped me realize that we live in a really big world. And no one in this big world is truly alone. If you don't have your community with you, sometimes you just have to take it upon you to search for your community and find your community. It's much easier these days for this current generation. There's no excuses for them, but I'm a bit jealous too that they have access to community so easily, but that's one of my best memories from childhood.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. All right, we'll move on to the next question, or sort of predicament, if you will. If a person met you, what would they be surprised to learn about you? Caitlin.
So people with that have actually been lifeguarding for 3 years. So yeah, those were my summer jobs when I was in college. When I came back home, I was a lifeguard. Honestly, it was pretty much one of the best jobs for a deaf person, considering I don't really have to spend a lot of time listening when I'm on the chair. So that was kind of nice. But it's funny because a lot of people would be asking me like, wait, you're deaf and you're a lifeguard? How can you hear the people when they're drowning? My answer would be, you can't. They're dead. But really, I mean, drowning is very, very silent and all that. So, but yeah, I mean, when it comes to being a lifeguard, everything is completely visual, you know. And also another thing that people are surprised about would be that I am an athlete. Well, why is an athlete really? I did gymnastics for 15 years, and I did soccer for 9 years, and I also did a variety of other sports as a kid, like basketball, baseball, even acrobatics for a bit. It was fun. But so yeah, when I'm competing in gymnastics, people will be really surprised. They're like, wait, she's deaf and she's on beat with the music when she completing her floor routine. The thing is that my tumbling skills were so advanced that when I tumble, my humors fly out. So when I do my floor routine, I actually take off my hearing aids. And my coaches would actually my coaches would stand on the corners of the floor, signal me like, stop, slow down, and go faster, whatever, so I can stay on time with my music. Not once, not twice, but 3 times my music stopped in the middle of my routine. And I had no idea. So I just kept going. And there was this one time that I noticed that there's a coach from a different team who started clapping. Like she was just clapping like that. And I was just doing my routine and I'm like, why is she clapping? She's so upbeat in my music. And then later, more people started joining with her, started clapping, and then soon everyone in the entire auditorium started clapping. And then I finished my routine and everyone, all the other gymnasts and coaches, they started clapping too. And I'm like, what's going on? Like, what's happening? Why me? Like, what's going on? And all my teammates were like, Caitlin, the music stopped. And I'm like, are you serious? But even so, that's a little bit off track. But yeah, so yeah, that's something that people are surprised about of me.
Very neat. Thank you. Who'd like to go next? Why don't you go, Andrew?
Thank you, Queen of Purple. Andrew here. One thing that people are surprised to learn about me is that I do acro yoga. It's one word, acro yoga. I have a sign for it. It's one that we created because there's not a sign for acro yoga. Acro yoga is where you have 2 yogis working together. It combines yoga and acrobatics. If you've ever seen a Cirque du Soleil show, where they do all those neat acrobatics, or they have a person who is holding them up with their legs dangling and kind of dancing together. People are surprised to hear that I do that, even though I'm deafblind. They say, wait, you can't see, you can't hear, how do you do that? I'll be doing acro yoga with my wife or with a different partner, and I'll be holding them above my head, and I don't need to see them because acro yoga is extremely tactile. It's all about that tactile communication with your partner. If they bend one way, you have to go that same way in order to maintain balance. And I got involved with acro yoga because another deaf-blind woman was an actual teacher, and she was doing a fundraiser for the deaf-blind community. And I saw the acro yoga event and thought, okay, let's see what this is all about. Fell in love with it and had a lot of fun with it. So I'll try to find a picture while the next person tells their story, and I'll pull one up.
Awesome. Thank you, Andrew. Latrina. This is a good question. What would people be surprised to learn about me? I guess in general, since I work at the school, many parents, when they meet me, are surprised that I have taught in a public school, that I've taught with a classroom of both hearing and deaf children. They have never had a deaf ed teacher before. They've had experience with hearing teachers who are deaf ed teachers. And so the fact that I'm a deaf person who is also a deaf educator is surprising to parents sometimes. So I would explain that I had a co-teacher. We would teach together, a hearing instructor as well as myself. Sometimes parents think that that might be kind of an awkward setup. But when they see that my students actually learn more from me, teaching them through my first language, it really is successful. Again, I have my regular teaching expectations and I teach in my modality, and it really does work. When I tell people that I've traveled to so many different countries, they think it's impossible, that it wouldn't be granted or approved for a passport. And I counter that with my experience of going to Africa and going to China. I explained that, often I do these trips with larger groups and a lot of us go together. And so there's assumptions then that because I don't hear, that I won't be able to function in airports or anything like that. I explain you always have paper and pencil with you. You can always write back and forth. I have 3 cats. Sometimes they're surprised by that. They think maybe I have no pets at all. And in fact, I have 3. So yeah. And of course, I am the Queen of Purple, but you already knew that. It's part of my name on screen. This is Delight. Wonderful. Thank you. Okay, the next question is a good one. It's an important one as well. I keep forgetting to introduce myself before I keep talking. I can't do that. So again, this is Delight. Next question is, what are your top 3 strategies for effective communication with people around you? Go right ahead, Latrina. Yes, so the top 3. First and foremost, learn ASL. Be comfortable with finger spelling. Allow the deaf person to choose their preferred interpreter. This is really important because there are a lot of people all over who know sign language. I'm surprised, I'll go to a bank, I'll go to the grocery store, my doctor's office, and there are people sprinkled about who know sign. My dentist actually is one of those people. I intentionally found a dentist who knew sign language. My doctor knows sign language as well. Just that effort, that fact makes a huge impact. I'll see this in drive-throughs even. I'll be picking up lunch or dinner, and I live in the northwest area of Tucson near Marana. ASL is offered at the high school there. There are a lot of people in the drive-throughs who know how to sign. There's a lot of sign language classes offered at Tucson High School as well. And so it's really amazing to see it sprinkled throughout the town. I bought a new home a couple years ago. My neighbor knows sign. That was just a dream come true. I can talk directly to my neighbor through sign language. Again, make sure that you allow the deaf person to choose their interpreter that they have working for them. For example, I hand chose Tori tonight. They know me, they know my background. We've worked together for, oh my gosh, I don't even want to know how many years. My daughter's 15, so we've worked together for 16 years now. And she knows my tendencies, my pace, my attitude, my directness. She'll catch that. I don't want any of that lost. And so I choose that intentionally when I work with interpreters. So make sure that you allow your other deaf person to do that. Let them choose the interpreter that works best with them for the situation at hand. It's not a one size fit all decision. Learning sign language, being comfortable with using your face, using your body, using to communicate is all the first thing I would say. Also, remember that you have a lot of technology and a lot of options at hand for you. I want to show you a quick little thing here real quick. I use this when I'm communicating with people who don't know sign. So again, it says next Tuesday will be our next meeting. I can't believe it. So this I was using to communicate with a new family who was just learning ASL. We didn't have all the vocabulary to teach that. And so I communicated this way, in a way that they can write it out. Part of what the work that I do is providing ASL lessons and ASL connections for parents with deaf children. I work in partnership with Gallaudet University to provide this education for local parents. So again, before we have that shared language in place, we have different technologies at hand to still communicate with each other. Also, that is saved then in a note. So the entirety of the meeting can be saved for the parents to take with them. Typically, when I get ready to order food at a drive-through, I'll have my order ready to go. And I'm a creature of habit. And so I have these orders pre-saved on my phone because I order the same thing every time. Sometimes I want ice in my drink. Sometimes I want extra ice. What kind of French fries, what sort of sauces I want. I have it all typed up on my phone, ready to go. So if I'm doing the drive-through order to bring home for everybody, I just have it ready for them to read so that everybody is understanding the situation. You can use your iPhone nowadays or a video phone if you have a video phone at your house in order to make phone calls to hearing people. These kinds of technology is bringing on an interpreter to the line so that you can talk to people who don't know sign language as well. In the olden days, we used TTYs. Those are sort of obsolete these days. We have video phones now. And even video phones are becoming more obsolete. Nowadays, we just do everything on our smartphones or our iPads. You can download the apps for different phone companies there. You can call your doctor, make an appointment with them. If you need to follow up with your insurance company or whatever it is, you can make all those phone calls. And also because you are calling with an interpreter, sometimes these agencies or the doctor's offices, that kind of things don't really know how to work with an interpreter. And so they have a script to help as well. So again, in summary, I would say make sure to learn ASL, have technology ready at hand, different apps, and then either your smartphone or iPad to be able to make those calls. This is Delight. All right, Caitlin or Andrew, anything that you would like to add?
Okay, Caitlin here. So the top 3 strategies for effective communication for me is, well, the top 2 is just equally important to one another for me, which is lip reading, really. As long as I grew up, 99% in the hearing law. So I am used to growing up and talking and lip reading and all that stuff. I am fluent in sign language. It's just that I'm connected to my school's horrible Wi-Fi. So I just know if I want to start signing, I'm a little bit blurry. So yeah, I'm not doing that. So anyway, my first and second effective communication would be being able to see someone's face and be able to look with them. Of course, don't talk like with your mouth super wide open and slowly and talk really loud like I'm a boring guy. I'm not, no. But yeah, verbally communication, as long as the environment is quiet and I can see your lips clearly and hear you as well. I wear hearing aids, by the way. It works for me. Also, the second one is sign language. I am fluent in sign language. It may not be my priority language, but it's still one of my main form of communication. So communicating in sign language is also really helpful for me. Even if I'm talking to someone not learning sign language, I would mostly sign to them so that way they could keep practicing the skills on signing. My third strategy would be kind of like what I'm so sorry if I got her name. Latina, I'm sorry. Kind of like what she said, texting and just like in the notes app or texting back and forth to one another. That helps me a lot. Or even writing on a piece of paper. Just any kind of visual English word can be. A lot of times I would, instead of ordering verbally, especially if I would go to a restaurant where the workers are wearing masks, I've been through this situation one too many times where I would tell the worker that I am deaf and that I need to lip read, but I'm saying it verbally and they still don't really comprehend that. So instead of just leading to a whole 5 minutes of miscommunication of them not really understanding that I'm deaf and I need to lip read or communicate with me differently, I just type everything down on my phone and the notes app and just show them. They don't question it. So, but yeah, I use that quite a lot. And so, yeah, those are my top 3.
Thank you. Andrew, do you have your top 3? Top 3 pieces of advice for deafblind individuals?
Thank you. And working with people who are deafblind, you definitely have to use different strategies. Caitlin talked about texting and lip reading. Those are fantastic strategies. And obviously that, to me, feels like common sense. Now thinking about working with me specifically, lighting is important. And the lighting needs to be adjusted in order for me to be able to see a sign language interpreter. Especially if we're in a situation where we're further away. If it's a low light situation, then I need to be closer to the interpreter and communicate using tactile sign language where I have my hands over their hands. If we're in a well-lit area, we need to be mindful of the sun. If I'm looking at someone who's sitting in front of a window, I really just see their shadow. I can't really see them. It's best to kind of switch spots to where my back is facing the window and they're looking at me and I'm looking at them as they're directly in the light. So sometimes you have to adjust the lighting depending on the situation. And because I'm deafblind, it can be difficult to follow along with a conversation as far as knowing who is speaking. And so I generally have a difficult time knowing who is speaking. And so it helps me if people identify themselves or if the interpreter identifies who is communicating for me. That is a huge help. And that's a huge help to all deafblind people. And then last, I would say technology. Technology has been so helpful in really every arena. There's Braille technology, there's audio technology, there's assistive technology, really, you name it, it's out there, and all of it helps. So I would say that.
Wonderful. Thank you, Andrew. There's a comment in the chat talking about lighting and agreeing with your comment about how crucial it is for deafblind individuals to make sure that what they need to see is visible. Okay, I am mindful of time. There are some really important questions I want to get to here. So we're going to jump down to number 9 for the time being. Question 9 is, what advice would you give to parents who have younger kids with hearing differences or deafblindness? Go right ahead, Caitlin.
Caitlin here. Well, first of all, just because your kids are different than other people doesn't mean that's a bad thing. They're still human beings, okay? They're still kids, they're still human. Everyone has something, just something just can be more obvious or greater than the other. So second, just talk to them as part of the community of what your kid has. If your kid is deaf, reach out to the deaf community. Don't listen to the hearing doctor, don't listen to the hearing audiologist, don't listen to the hearing community. We know what's best. We know more than that. We know ourselves, we know the actual community. We are the best people for you to reach out to for extra support and everything that you need. For example, my audiologist, I've had her for a while. She spent 30 years working with kids. Doesn't even know the basic alphabets in ASL. And she made me have to live with her. She's sweet and all, but she doesn't even know sign language at all. And she works with deaf kids. And she even told my mom one time when I was about 8 years old that she should consider getting me cochlear implants so that way I could talk better. So yeah, like every kid is individual, every kid is unique, okay? We are more alike than different, okay? And everyone's different. So what's the difference, right?
Latrina, go right ahead. Hi, Latrina here. Oh, Caitlin, what you said is absolutely perfect. The only thing I would add to that, parents, be open-minded, keep an open mind, and remember that you are learning about your child. There is no one size fits all.
Oh, now you
You need to learn your child's style. Honor that. Whatever their preferences are, whatever their interests are, foster that. Don't just derail their interests into your preferences for them. Kids are naturally fascinated in everything. So if it's art, if it's tumbling, whatever it is, find what they love and invest in that for them. If they're into dinosaurs, go for it. Start a collection. Talk about the sizes, the colors, the textures. Go to museums. You let them expose them to everything. That interest in dinosaurs can lead them to art history, to preservation, to science, who knows what. So invest in them, invest in their passions. Let them develop as people. Let them thrive in their own abilities and find out what they're good at. They can also adapt and figure out how to do things in their own way. Let them do that as well. There's no need to compare yourself or your child with your cousin or your family, your sister's child. Stop doing that. Focus on them. Get excited about what they're excited in and see where that takes you. Again, celebrate them as individuals, as their own little characters and their own personalities. If you don't know where to start for your child's interests, look online, Google it. Ask, bring in a deaf person. If you don't know, ask us. Ask us. Like Caitlin said, We are our own experts. And we know if your child is into computer science or coding, we know deaf people who know computers and know coding. So reach out to us. We, again, are a very tight-knit community, and we are very resourceful. If you are looking for I wanted a deaf artist, I wanted a painter for that. And, I reached out to my network. If I wanted to have a Mexican-American artist who is also deaf, I can find that person. If I wanted to have an African-American deaf artist, I have those people in my network as well. Same for a Chinese deaf person. So again, ask around and we will find that. If you're looking for an artist, I'm actually looking for a deaf indigenous painter. I found indigenous deaf bead work and bead artists, but I haven't found a painter yet who is an indigenous deaf artist. When you seek those people out, when you commission their work, it makes them feel amazing. I have commissioned work from each of these people that I've mentioned tonight, and it's amazing to have their work in my home. Having them be sought out and paid for their talent really made an impression on them. So don't be shy. Talk to us, reach out. We can get you connected with who you need to be connected with. Delight, go right ahead, Andrew.
Fascinating. Your answers were great. What more could I possibly add? I do have one other thing that I would like to say. We live in this world that is just riddled with stigma. If someone sees the word deaf, they come to so many conclusions and assumptions about that person based on that one word. And we know that whenever anyone sees someone who's different, they may have a similar reaction. I think it's important to focus on the individual and celebrate their deafness, celebrate their deafblindness, figure out how to leverage their skills in order to make them more successful in the long run. To give you an example, I went through several different job interviews, and oftentimes when the interviewers found out that I was deaf or deafblind, they had a lot of questions. And I always started things out by saying, no matter what you think I can't do, I can. And by the end of the interview, I always changed everyone's perception of people who are deaf or deafblind. Being deafblind makes me awesome. You can't afford not to hire me. That's kind of how I sell myself in an interview. And it really makes a mark on people. And we always have lots of jokes about that, but that's how I approach things.
All right, well, thank you. This is Delight. So now I want to take the time to open it up for any questions for those of you in the audience tonight. You can ask a general question, you can ask a question to a specific person, but again, this time is yours. And I want to say there was a question sent in. Can someone remind me what it was? I found the question. So this was sent in from Ariel. And the question is, if you were to have advice for parents who just found out that their children is deaf, that their child is deaf or deafblind or hard of hearing, if they are going through a grieving process, what advice would you give them to help them process through that? Latrina, go ahead. This is Latrina. So that's a very normal experience, a normal feeling to feel that grief with the news. But please don't become stuck on that grief. Grief is a process. You're allowed to grieve. Let yourself go through that process. Cry it out, whatever you need to do, that's fine. And then decide what you're going to do next. You need to become the advocate for your little deaf baby, whether it's a deaf baby, hard of hearing baby, or a deaf-blind baby. You are their advocate. So you can start simply by asking questions and follow your gut. If anything doesn't feel right, you all know this. You have that parental intuition. If something doesn't feel right, get another opinion. I have multiple jobs. One of them is working as an advocate. And so when the baby is met, or is when the baby's parents have the meeting post-hearing screening with the doctor or whoever it is, we are there with an interpreter ready to go. And I am there as a deaf person. I come in with a little badge. I introduce myself saying, you know, I am a deaf advocate. I am Latrina. I come with an interpreter, as I said. And so the idea behind this advocacy work that I do is to immediately, upon these parents meeting their deaf baby, to meet another deaf person, to offer them a resource, to give them the deaf view on their deaf baby. It's not necessarily a baby with hearing loss or anything like that. I want them to understand that there is nothing there's nothing wrong, nothing negative with this. I really do encourage them to see the positiveness of deaf culture. And their baby didn't fail the hearing test. I encourage them to look at the results of the hearing test. We really need to be careful about the language that we use. The first word that you use to talk about this little baby is that they failed something. How is that possible? They're a week old. They're 6 weeks old. So this is part of the advocacy work that I do, is working to change the language. And again, to have someone meet someone from the deaf community. So we say your child is deaf, your child is deaf-blind, your child is hard of hearing. And then we present the facts, unbiased, uncharged facts. This way, parents can feel ready to go and more prepared for the next steps with their innocent little child, their little baby. So that's one of the things that I do to contribute. Go right ahead.
Well said. Like, you know, I would deaf. My parents, for example, a few years ago, I asked them, what did you feel? How did you react when you first found out that I was deaf? Because they didn't notice that I was deaf until I was a year and a half old. So it took me quite a while. So first of all, they were very angry in a way. They felt like they did something wrong and that they were scared mostly. I don't think they were angry, but they're just really disappointed in themselves, saying like, oh my gosh, what have I done? Like, this is my mistake. My mom, I made her this way. Like, this is all my fault. And now she's stuck like this forever. It was hard because my parents never grew up knowing anything about the deaf community. So when they found out, it was a whole new world to them. And it is a new world to them. My mom said that she mourned for a while. It was hard because now her daughter is just a completely different person at that point. So one thing I would definitely say is, yes, it's okay to mourn. Your child is different and may not be who you expected them to be, and that's okay to be sad. But do not let that mourning, your perspective, your negative perspective, be the only thing that you see for the rest of your life. Don't see your child as different, disabled, lesser being. That's not who they are. Don't let you have both daughters of them when you realize of their deafness or anything like that to be the only thing that you focus on, the only flaw, really. And so I would say, go back to the whole new world out there. The deaf community is an amazing world. And now, compared to, well, ever, really, we have the best of both worlds, the physical world and the virtual world. You can find so many great information and advocacy and so much stuff on the social media, the internet, all of that stuff. You're not alone. You don't have to go to the local deaf school. You can if you want to, I don't care. But like, if you want more information, you can totally look it up online. And there's so many other people out there. The name deaf. We're not hiding it anymore. More and more people are becoming more aware. And there's connections everywhere. So you meet one deaf person, you have the connection to the entire deaf world. So it's okay to have different feeling toward your child who is different, but don't see that as a bad thing. It's just a new adventure, right? It's the same thing. If you were to go to a different country and live there for 5 years, but you don't know anything about that country, you're gonna be overwhelmed. You're gonna mourn the old life, really. You're gonna wish that everything, but no, you have to learn. No matter what you do, you still have to learn. You have to get through with it. The more you learn, the more you feel comfortable. And the happier, not really happier, but the more accepting you are of that child, of your child, and their identity and the culture. No matter what you're gonna do, you can't change who they are. Might as well embrace it.
That's exactly right. Ms. Latrina, exactly right. Mrs. Delight, thank you. Go ahead, Andrew.
Andrew here. It is human nature to be afraid of the unknown. Something that is new to us is frightening. Going into a dark room where you can't see anything, you don't know what's beyond that door, it can be scary to feel like you have no control, like you don't know where you're headed, like you don't know how to protect yourself and your family. That's normal. I think that's the survival of it all. And that's why it's so important to take the time, do some research, and to become educated. And with time, you'll realize that solutions are out there and solutions may already be in place for your family. We really need to make sure that parents are taking the time to seek out information and to become educated, because anything is possible. We have deafblind doctors, we have deafblind attorneys. I actually know of one deafblind pilot, if you can imagine it. How does a deafblind person fly a plane? Well, the technology is out there and it's possible. Anything is possible, and that's what I would say to answer that question.
Wonderful. Well, thank you. That's awesome. There's another question. Well, go ahead, Heidi.
This is Heidi. I just wanted to take a minute real quick and say thank you guys so much, all three of you, hearing all of your perspectives and just the different journeys that you've all been on and that you continue to go on. We really appreciate that. A couple of things that I wanted to kind of plug in is, first of all, there's this really great journal that is put out by Hands and Voices that's called Fostering Joy. And it's really about taking the time to be intentional about seeking the joy in raising your deaf and hard of hearing child. And when this came out a few years ago, I can't tell you how happy it made me, because it's, we're able to encourage parents to not only just not to necessarily tell them that they shouldn't feel a certain way, but to tell them that it's okay to shift that focus and celebrate what all the good. Let's be intentional about seeking out the joy, the goodness that it is to have this beautiful baby that's in our world now, and just loving that child, because regardless, you love your child. It's your child. We grieve the things that we dreamed about as far as what we might dream of a perfect future for our child. But it doesn't mean that those things can't happen. We're just altering the path a little bit. And so just want to throw that little plug. This is, I don't know if you guys can see it very well. That's okay. I can share a link in a little bit, but just a little plug as well that we are having a virtual camp in December where everybody that signs up, the first 50 will get a copy of this journal. And there will soon be a release for a Fostering Joy for deaf and hard of hearing kids so the kids can fill out this journal and be intentional about seeking out the joy of every day. So great little plug. I think it's an awesome thing. But also just to, honestly, I forgot the second thing. So I'm gonna kick it back to you, Delight, while I try to remember what the second one was.
No problem, the light here, okay. Any other questions from the parents in the audience or any other participants in the audience? Feel free to pop on screen and ask your question or send it through the chat. Kaylin.
Okay, it's not even a question, but I had to show you guys this. We just released a few days ago, but University of Arizona, we just released a sign language t-shirt. See this? It says Wildcat in finger spelling. So you can also get it online at the bookstore, just so you guys know. But yeah.
How neat, very cool. This is Latrina. I wanted to add to that. So Caitlin's shirt has Wildcats fingers spelled across of it, spelled across the front of it. I want you all to know that there was a large committee, both of us were involved, that we went back and forth with different ideas, different iterations. We were thinking maybe to have actually the picture of Wilbur on there. We were thinking of what colors to have. We couldn't have very much red because imagine they're out of red ink. I didn't know that was a thing, but okay, a shortage on red ink. So we had to go round and round and round with the committee until finally we landed on what you see today. But as we, meet people and talk about it, I let people know I was part of that committee, but they are available. A portion of the sales support the Deaf Studies department. So head out, find one. They're at the bookstore. I see your plug. Okay, this is a delight. Andrew, go ahead.
Well, if I could also take a moment to do a little showing off here. Some of you had questions about acro yoga. I was able to find a photo. You can see what it looks like. Oh, well, dang, got that blurred background on there. I'm gonna have to change that filter. Give me just a moment. Go back to as you were. Give me a moment to change this.
Sure. I hope a lot of you know, but there are quite a few deaf artists and deaf entrepreneurs out there. They make shirts, they make jewelry, hats, you name it, it's out there. So if you are curious, go to Etsy, etsy.com. Look at Instagram as well. You can connect with a lot of different deaf artists out there, and they would love your support. So of course you can buy things for your family, for your children, support deaf pride and deaf culture. I've purchased a lot of different things. If my kid comes around, I can show you the shirt they're wearing. There's lots of water bottle stickers. You guys know stickers are so popular right now. So you can get the I love you hand shapes. You can get different signs in sticker form. So it's really neat. It's a neat thing to do. Andrew, are you ready?
I think I'm ready. I was able to adjust my settings.
Oh, cool. That is so neat.
Yeah, so you can see that it's very active. That's my wife, who I am lifting up. And you can see that my eyes are closed as we do acro yoga. And kids can do acro yoga as well. It's fun to see their facial expression while they're doing the acro yoga with a partner. But anyway, thanks for giving me a moment to show off, and I will zip my lips now.
That's great. Thank you for showing us. Any other comments? Heidi, did your thought come back to you?
This is Heidi. Yeah, so earlier we were talking about the grieving and things like that as far as when parents find out. And I just wanted to say that one of the things that I always encourage, that we encourage when we make initial calls to family after their diagnosis and offer them Guide by Your Side, we try to make sure that we're encouraging parents that, you know, we're validating their feelings and letting them know it's okay to feel how they feel. Oftentimes, I apologize, my dog is barking in the background. So oftentimes I remember to tell parents that there will be a day that you'll look back and say, I don't know why I was so worried. You know, things worked out, because that day does come. It doesn't feel like it in that moment, but that day does come when you kind of look back and go, gosh, I was so upset. I was so sad. I was, you know, all of these emotions that we go through. I experienced them even myself. I'm hard of hearing as well. I have a little girl that's hard of hearing, and I went through all of those emotions, anger, grief, sadness, and then, you know, and then happiness, and then going, okay, I've got this. And just, you know, one of the things, if I could say to anybody, is to really just take advantage of what you can. For Hands and Voices, we really believe in what works for your child is what makes the choice right. As long as you do what you can as a parent to empower yourself and to give your child every opportunity for what works for you and your family, that's what makes the difference. The more educated, the more empowered you are as parents, the best chances you have for your child reaching their highest potential. That's what it's all about. And that's what all of us, I think, are trying to sharing that message. It's really just doing the best you can to educate yourself, expose yourself to as much as you can. And, you know, we all do the best we can. Parenting alone, whether it's a deaf or hard of hearing child, parenting alone is not easy. It doesn't come with a handbook. You've got all these different methods that everybody believes in, but it really ultimately comes down to what you can do and what you have in front of you, and the tools that you take advantage of, and, you know, the tools that you continue to pack your toolbox with, right? So just know that you have a community of people, whether it's the deaf and hard of hearing folks, whether it's other parents of deaf and hard of hearing children, the professionals, and you take everything in and you use what's right for you. So I just wanted to take a moment and say that. That's what my thought was.
Okay. This is Delight. And I want to show you one of the stickers that I was talking about.
Oh, that's cool.
You can see this is a sign for grow. And you can find it anywhere, same as Andrew mentioned. It's really neat. There are deaf, hard of hearing, deaf blind, deaf plus artists out there. And like we've said before, it's a small community, really. So whether you're in a small town or big city, we can make these connections. And it will benefit not just you, but of course your child and your whole family. So reach out. Are there any other comments?
Okay, this is Heidi. I'm going to go ahead and grab it back. So if we don't have any other questions, any comments, I'm going to go ahead and wrap it up. So